Hey everybody, this is JoJo the HVAC man, and I wanted to talk to you for about 5 to 6 minutes on thermostat nomenclature, what all those little letters mean, and when you use them, when you don't, when you use batteries, when you don't. I mean, thermostats these days, in my opinion, have gone wild. Okay. You got communicating thermostats, you've got digital, of course, you got some analog still sitting out there. And what do you do with all that? How do you know when to hook up the R, the RC, the RH, all that good stuff? So here we go. Let's take a look. I'm going to make this really straightforward and simple. Not going to dig through a lot of PowerPoint presentations on you. Let's just take a look at what I got here on the screen. I pulled these up from the internet just by Google search. But you look on your left here, you've got a very standard thermostat connection. And it's got RC, it's got R, it's got O/B, Y, G, C, S1, S2, auxiliary, AUX, EL, and Y2. Wow, that's a lot. When do you use them and when you don't? Here's another one. It's got your R, it's got a RC, it's got a O, it's got a Y, a G, that's a W right there. It's got a B sitting off here by itself, and it's got batteries. Here's another one. It's got connections up top and on the bottom. And then this one, how about this? A, B, C, D, S1, S2. What does all that mean? Well, I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this out. I'm going to bring this over here. And let's just talk about a couple of these different types of thermostats that you can come across. All right. Now, here's a good one that labels a lot of conventional settings. And the question is, some guys ask me, well, where in the world these all come from? And I spoke with, when I used to work with Carrier when I was working with the engineers and all and training with them. There was a guy that was a trainer from back in the beginnings, back from the 70s. And, before the world of heat pumps, when they really got famous in the early 70s, real popular with the oil crisis. We had air conditioning and gas furnaces, but you go past that even further back in time, and we've got just your heating systems. Then we started adding air conditioning, and we had to figure out, or some council out there back in the day realized that there was, three great entities out there. We had the red one, and we had the yellow one, and we had the white one, and we had a green one, and there was the Infinity Stones. And oh wait, wrong movie. All right, so instead of being Infinity Stones, we've got thermostat designations that's been here for a long, long, long time. So R is 24 volts hot for red for hot. Okay, we can deal with that. W for heating. Don't know. Look for white hot. Okay, all right. Y for cooling. Why? Don't know. But that's just what it is. Y is always cooling. Now, don't get confused. Y is really not the whole cooling. It's really just 24 volts straight to the contactor outside or to the package unit. So Y is a 24 volt output straight to the contactor. So whether or not that's going to bring on cooling or not depends on if your compressor and outdoor fan are wired right and are working at the same time. That's a whole nother discussion. But Y brings on cooling unless it's a heat pump. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Then G for indoor fan, not ground. G is not ground. When you go to high voltage stuff, it's ground. But for us here in the HVAC world, G on a thermostat is indoor fan. Why? Don't know. All right. Now, C is for common. Okay, that's pretty darn straightforward. Now, on this one here, again, we're looking right here at this particular thermostat, and they're all a little different, okay? A little different. B on this manufacturer of thermostat stands for RV, that's reversing valve, in the heat mode. O is RV in the cool mode. B can be also something very different on a train thermostat. Okay? On a train thermostat, B can be common. B for reversing valve in the heat mode is for Rheem and Rude primarily, although I've seen some older Ameristar that it was B for reversing valve. All that means is that the reversing valve gets energized in the heating mode rather than the cooling mode. So you got to look out for that. If you have a thermostat, such as this example here on the right, and it's got both a O and a B, you're going to need to go into the thermostat configuration and tell it whether it energizes in heating or energizes in cooling. Or they'll have a dip switch on the back of it. You may have to turn it over and flip that dip switch between O and B. You need to know your unit and to find out whether or not it energizes a reversing valve in cooling, so it uses O, or for heating, it uses B. And again, this is heat pump thermostats only. The majority of heat pumps out there use O for reversing valve in the cooling mode. But there are a few select ones out there that instead energize a reversing valve in heating, and that's when you're going to use the B terminal. Now, a train designated thermostat, a train labeled thermostat, is always going to use B for common, and it may even be labeled a B/C, a B/C, to let you know what's going on, but not always. So B on a train thermostat is common, and it's just got an O for reversing valve because train does not energize their reversing valves in heating. However, if you buy an Ameristar from a train distributor, because train's the one that distributes Ameristar, then it is B for reversing valve in most cases. They might have fixed that at this point, but usually not. And then any unit I've noticed that comes from outside of the United States, that is manufactured by a company outside the United States, typically, almost always, I hadn't seen anything different, they energize a reversing valve in the heating mode. Okay. Now, we got also a Y2. And as this says, that's for second stage cooling. I know it says vary. Okay. Meaning that some manufacturers, they label it Y1 and Y2, or they'll label it Y/Y2 with a Y1 separate. A Y2 is second stage cooling, and a Y is single stage cooling or first stage cooling in this setup. Other thermostats, and I'm looking around here on my little, like right here, if you look at this one, okay, this one's got a Y1/Y2 on the furnace and a Y only here at the thermostat. So some manufacturers will tell you if it's a Y/Y2, if you have a Y/Y2, that means it is single stage cooling or the second stage of cooling. Okay. So if you've got a unit that's got a Y/Y2 and that's it, then the Y/Y2 is your single stage setup. However, if you have a thermostat that's got a Y1 and a Y/Y2, a lot of the Carrier and Bryant's did, then Y1 is single stage, first stage, and Y2 is second stage. Right? Clear as mud, right? So if a thermostat has Y1 and a Y2/Y, then if you have a single stage unit hooked to that thermostat, then the cooling call is going to be out on that Y/Y2. If it's a two-stage unit outdoors, then Y1 is first stage, Y/Y2 is second. That's why they broke it up. Okay? Now, let's go back. W. So now you got a W up here, you got a W2 and an E. Okay? If this is a heat pump, then you're going to use W2 and E. Your first stage heating in a heat pump is the Y output. Okay? Even though it says cool and it's Y, remember it's just 24 volts to the contactor. So if it's a heat pump, it doesn't matter whether it's heating or cooling, Y goes out to the contactor and it will be energized first in the heat mode with a heat pump thermostat. After that, if it needs additional heating, okay, if it's going to need additional heating, then along with the Y, it's going to energize the W2. Now, some thermostats are going to label them W1, W2, and auxiliary. If that's the case, it may energize W1 right after it does Y. But just remember, first stage heating on any heat pump is the Y output. And after that, it's auxiliary heat beyond that. The only exception to that is dual fuel, where you have a gas furnace that is hooked up to a heat pump. In that case, first stage heating is Y. If it goes to second stage heating, it's going to go to W, and it will disconnect Y, go to W, and bring on the gas furnace. A heat pump and a gas furnace do not run at the same time. It's either the heat pump does a job, and if it can't keep up, it'll flip over to the gas furnace and dual fuel and begin to use the gas. The only time a dual fuel setup is going to run a heat pump and a gas furnace at the same time is in defrost. Okay, only in defrost and a dual fuel. E is emergency heat. E is the same as W auxiliary when it comes to heat strips or when the dual fuel. If you go to E, emergency heat, manually on your thermostat, you flip it over or you hit the button and you go to emergency heat on a heat pump during the heating mode, it's going to send a signal straight out to W. It's going to bring on either your heat strips or your gas furnace. Then let's take a look at this other one here that you might ask, what is the A, B, C, D, and S1, S2? And I tell you what, let me pull this over a little bit. Go back here. Let's see. A, B, C, D. Well, I'll just bring it up here. A, B, C, D, S1, S2. Anytime you see an S1, S2, that is outdoor temperature sensor hookup. The ABCD is a communication setup for a Carrier Bryant thermostat, Evolution or Infinity. Okay, now I know they've probably upgraded a lot since then, but there's a lot of those out there. Your train connection diagrams for communication are going to be different, along with your Honeywell communicating. So you really got to get into reading those instructions for those guys. Also, don't forget, if you've got a thermostat that is dual application, then you got to read conventional right here. That word conventional means gas heat with straight air conditioning. Gas heat with straight air conditioning. If it's a heat pump, then you're going to look at these terminals. So the same screws, but if you hook it up to a gas heat with straight air conditioning, you're going to use the top ones. That's going to be what's going to be working. If you've got a heat pump, you're going to use the bottom ones. That L, by the way, is a signal that would go out to a light to give you an indicator of a fault. I've never seen that used. And if you have, great, leave in the comments. It'd be cool to tell me what it was, how it was being used on that L output. And you see there O/B? Well, that O/B means that this thermostat can work with either a heat pump that energizes in the heating or in the cooling for the reversing valve. You will configure that inside the thermostat configuration menu or dip switch, and then you will hook up here to O/B. So this O/B will energize the reversing valve depending on what you've got it set for energizing the heating or cooling. And then you got R and RC. Those two have to always be jumped out together. Okay. That was for when you had a unit that had a separate transformer at the indoor unit and a separate transformer at the outdoor unit. We don't see that anymore in residential at all, in most cases. So you're always jumper R and C. Now, if you've got a situation to where you've got some unusual setup where it's got its own transformer indoors and its own transformer outdoors, then you leave those disconnected, and the R will be for the one on the indoors, and the RC is be the one for the outdoors. Now, last but not least, how about these batteries? In my opinion, don't use a thermostat with the common and batteries. Try to always, always, always run it 24 volts hot and common to it. Get rid of the batteries. That way, if you have a problem that takes the safety out and it kills the unit, when I mean kill the unit, kill the 24 volts power for a safety reason, then the thermostat goes blank and the customer knows there's a problem. If you have batteries as a backup, they'll never know there's a problem till it's late at night. Then you get that service call you don't want to get so late. Okay, I'm sorry I went over more than my usual, but I hope this helps. You got any questions, please leave in the comments, like and subscribe, and tell me what else you want. Take care. You guys have a great day.